no problem, Jack. I've got the full service.
Okay, now Jim is up there for one reason. This train is already warm. The fire is not going, but they have steamed it up. It's got a full head of steam up in the steam dome. See, so he's sitting here, and we'll be taking this back to Main Street. Because of that, the rule of thumb in a steam train is, if it's metal, don't touch it. It's probably hot. Okay? So Jim's going to be up there to make sure that happens. And what I want to do is get, he's going to sit in the seat there, and I want to get 4 or 5 people right up here with your back against the tender. Okay? So a couple of non-bashful people, let's go. And then the rest come in close. I'll tell you what they're seeing in a very, very terse way. Jim will point it out and go over it with them a little bit more. And then the rest of you will be on your own in groups.
Well,
okay, is that about it?
One more to stand on the end here. Oh. So you can stand.
Okay, how are we doing? Okay, all right. Cabin operation, relatively simple, traditional steam train. On the left, the fireman. His job, keep the engineer happy. How does he do that? Keep steam up, okay? He can grade himself by looking up at the biggest of the gauges up on top of the boiler. Because that whole thing is nothing but a big teapot out there on its side, right? With pipes running through it to get the heat and the smoke from the firebox down there to the black nose, which is the smoke chest, and then up the chimney, up the stack, right? But, so he's going to have his fire back here, and he's going to be boiling water like mad. So, just like a steam pot on your stove, you have to worry about the level of water in there. And anybody that ever tried to put on for tea or anything, you know, if you fill it up too far, there's no room to make the steam, first of all, and it takes forever to get it boiling. So the balance is, get it down to a nice level where there's plenty of room to boil some water, get the steam up into that steam dome. But what happens if you let the water go down too far in the steam pot? You burn out the bottom of the pot, right? Turns red, turns white, cracks. Same thing here. On top of that firebox, which has got that roaring fire going on it, it's a metal crown. You let the water go down there and there's nothing for that heat to do but heat that metal up and not go into the water, not dissipate. It's going to turn right, red, white hot, crack and break eventually. And in the old days, a guy would see that happening. He's a novice. Oh, I can save it. He would throw water in there and blow this thing sky high. And that's always been the danger of steam, and it remains that way. There have been numerous accidents over the years with heritage steam tractors and everything where they make a mistake. So we have to be careful, and you'll see later on as we walk out here, we'll talk about some safety features that we have because we're Disney. But it's still a steam engine and it's still potentially got that. So how does he control his water? By his knee, he's got a water glass. There's a bubble in it. It bounces around a little bit while we're moving, but basically that water glass is the level of that water out there in the pot. Okay? And we talk in terms of, so railroaders understand how much water we're talking about. You'll see there's some bolts on the water glass. 1 bolt, 2 bolts, 3 bolts, 4 bolts. We try to keep it right around 3.5 bolts. That's a good operating. Even though the bubble is dancing a little bit, on average, that's what we're looking for. Okay. The other thing he worries about is how do I put water in if it's getting low? He's got a set of valves on both sides of the boiler. By injecting, he can manually inject water from the tender into it and bring the water level up. Okay? The other thing he controls, after he's got his water under control, he now has to do his fire. He's the one who will throw the wick in there, and then with valves he will blow his stack to get a good draft going up the chimney. Then he will atomize the fuel, and by his knee he's got a slider valve, and when he turns that slider valve, he is controlling the amount of fuel that's mixing with steam and outside air. Okay? Together, that will give him the right fire. He knows it's the right fire by peeking in the peek hole. He never opens the door. In the old days, he'd have to open it up and keep throwing fuel in. Today, no. That thing's roaring in there. He keeps the door closed, but he peeks at the color. Buttery yellow, perfect fire. If it gets blue, bluish, purplish, it's too thin, and if you don't do something about it, give it a little more fuel, you're saving Mickey money, but the fire's going to go out. Okay? If you over-control then and go through buttery yellow and to the other extreme, and now I'm giving it too much, it will turn scarlet, blood red, and at about 4 seconds later, black smoke will start belching out. Makes great pictures, but the problem is it's a dirty fire. Now, when you go to Heritage Railroad, sometimes you'll see them, and if they've got oil, they'll over oil it to make it look great. It's like they threw coal on, right? But that costs them, because when they come back to the Roundhouse, they have to open up the nose and get in there, and all those pipes have to be done with metal brushes to clean out the creosote and everything that now forms so it's a costly thing to do. All right, so that's pretty well the fireman's world. Gets to ring the bell too. We let him ring the bell, make him feel better. But ultimately, you see, he wants to be over there where the power is, and that is the engineer on the other side. Engineer, of course, is in control of the throttle. Every kid that ever saw a train go by, I don't care who he was, man or woman, I'd love to be that guy. He was the hero in the days of steam, especially, and that was the hand on the throttle. Throttle is not like an electric switch. It's not on and off. You open up the throttle and send steam. It goes down that pipe, in there, comes out at the square box, and which is the steam chest, and then down to the cylinder. If you say, give it some throttle, oop, didn't mean that, and push it in, it's too late. That steam is on its way. And it's going to do what steam does. It's going to expand, and it's going to push those cylinders, and it's going to turn those wheels unless I interrupt the flow. And Jim, if you'll kick the steam cock.
They're open.
Oh, they're open now.
Yeah,
Okay, so.
you see it just dripping gently right now.
Oh, okay. You may see there's water dripping, but what he's got is he's got a pin on the floor there, and when he kicks it forward, he releases steam cocks on both ends of the cylinder, and steam rushes out. Okay? Now, that's essential. That's the only way, because steam's lazy too, so it'll take the easy way out, so it escapes there. Otherwise, it is going to hit the cylinder and push it, and it's going to turn the wheels. Okay, remember the heroine. She's tied into the track. We all saw those movies. The engineer sees him. Will he stop in time? First, throttle in, right? And then we didn't see him do it because it's too subtle, but he kicked that steam cock because you saw steam coming out under both of the cylinders. Makes a great movie. And boy, adds to the excitement. And then the next thing he did was he grabbed the reverser bar, or the Johnson bar, from Mr. Johnson who invented it, and he pulled it back. And what happened? He spun the wheels backwards, right? That's because all the way forward, or forward positions, that's forward movement of the train. Back, it's a reverse movement of the train. Middle is neutral. Sound like a shift? And does that sound a little like a clutch?
Yep.
Well, just like a clutch, you couldn't go from forward to reverse in one of those old cars without dropping the darn thing on the floor. Same thing here, for a different reason. Steam is too strong. And I don't care if you're Arnold Schwarzenegger, you cannot go from forward to reverse without kicking that in. Now we know he did it, and then of course he spun the wheels. Makes a great movie, lousy stop. Because spinning wheels do not drag you the way you just put pressure on wheels. So you get it into reverse, but you drag, you don't spin. As I say, great movie, but not a, I don't know. We've never lost a heroine, that's all I'll say. But in any case, that's his world. Now, he's got brakes right by his knee. The brakes are interesting. They don't stop the locomotive. They don't stop the tender. We choose not to. What they do is, right out here, there's a black pump. It's pumping up air pressure into this tank. It is sending it back to all passenger cars. And this morning, you didn't see this, but all these trains came out. And you see these red dots kind of painted along here. It's getting harder and harder to see them. But in any case,
they're more on my side.
Yeah, I think they are. We'll see them when we get over
track
there.
5.
There's one there. But in any case, what happens is when they bring each train out in the morning, supervisor underneath in the pit, they come out, they stop at the red dot until he says go on, because he's checking couplers, he's checking safety chains, he's checking electrical hookup between the cars, and above all, the air hoses. Because if you have a break in those air hoses, or the last one isn't closed, and you send air pressure back there, and it'll run right out the tail. And nothing will happen with the brakes. Why do we do that? Because if we do a sudden stop, an emergency, J-bar stop, and we train our people to do it, and we've all had to do it at one time or another, when you do that, we don't want you going, we don't want this thing to stop dead and the cars keep going, because you'll go forward in your seat. And we don't want you to hit your nose at a minimum. So what happens is when we do a J-bar stop, these cars are pulling the engine to a stop and you're going back in your seat. Much safer. And if we had a trainee this morning, they would probably give that trainee a J-bar trial on the way up to Main Street just to see if they're getting that. Because of the physical strength involved, even after you kick in the steam cock release, we train all of our engineers. The only physical requirement is that they have the body strength to pull it back into reverse should they have to do a J-bar stop. And that's it. And there's a speedometer up in the corner. We go 10, 11 miles an hour all day long, 12 miles an hour. Buzzer comes on, sound comes on, light comes on, and stays on all the way around to Toontown, at which time a manager will come up, or a technician will come up from the Roundhouse and take the buzzer off and make a note for Mickey of an overspeed.
Nope.
It's serious business. We could go very fast, but we got a mile and a half and 20 minutes to do it in. That's the plan, and there's no sense in putting stress on the engine. There's no need to rush around, and a real good reason. If anybody's ever had around the Christmas tree, every year I make the same mistake. I put it up and I run the engine as fast as she'll go. What does she do? First, she falls over. So I learned, right? Okay, I'll back off a little bit and I get it going as fast as I can without falling over. And 20 minutes later, the track starts to pull apart because centrifugal force will finally open it up. Well, we can pull these rails right out of our ties if we go consistently too fast. It's just not worth it, so we don't. And finally, we talked about the steam pressure. We operate between 120 and 140 pounds. We have pop-off valves up on top of the steam dome at about 153. They will pop off. We would make sure every morning that they're working correctly. And the engineer gets to blow the whistle. Okay? That's his big moment in life. Get up there, look in the back. You can see where they put the water in, put the fuel in. And I think that's about it. So now we'll just cycle through. And I'll be telling stories down here. For those of you who have never thought about this, when you look at drivers and there's more than two big drivers, the middle one is different than the other two. You notice that? No flange. That's because when you're going around a tight corner, if you have the front one holds you on the track, the back one holds you on the track, if you had a flange on this one, it would be scraping against the rails. So this is a traveler, and you can see different wear lines where, depending on the corner we're going around, it goes back and forth guided by those two. So it doesn't put any pressure on the track. This is that air pump where we're putting up the steam. And on the back of the tender, you'll get a chance to see it quite often, but there's a big box back there. Later on, they're grinding the track up.
Go ahead.
Because it's light rail. And so they said, well, let's find two non-Moscow engineers.
Come on, we got room, Thomas. Okay. Just squeeze in just a little bit. We'll try to get 4 people up here. Okay. All right, things Jack talked about. The rope is the belt. Sight glass for the water. The brass is the fuel control lever or fuel handle. Stack blower, atomizer. This is our firebox door with the peephole. Steam pressure gauge, brake pressure gauge he didn't mention. Speedometer. Johnson bar for direction, throttle for speed, whistle for fun, and brakes to stop. I'm just trying to repeat the things the way he said. Yeah.
117 pounds? No.
I'm sorry?
117 pounds pressure.
Right now we're at 150.
Under the tender, there's a box there.
The 140 one that was parked here. Wait for you guys to come out. It's just radiational cooling and leakage.
We used to run boiler up to the pulp mill. We were running 850. Big recovery burn. Number C garbage oil to start it, and then onto liquor and get the oil off.
Jungle. So they didn't have any problem with fire.